So, all right, Alina, sorry to leave you in the in the lurch there. Alina, if you would share with us one word about how you're feeling about homeschooling and then where you're from, if you can hear me, or if you're able to answer. Might not be able to answer. So, okay. All right. Well, I'll share about me. So, my name is Heidi Ullman, and I am based in Los Angeles, California. And I just really wanted to hop on here and share with you guys my homeschooling journey because I feel like a lot of people could possibly just be encouraged by me sharing my story. And I think homeschooling is wonderful. I have done it since the beginning, and it's just an exciting journey. And I heard someone speak about homeschooling, and it inspired me, and that's what made me want to do it. And so I just want to share my story with you so that hopefully you'll feel inspired and encouraged that you can do this. Even in this different world and state of things that's going on, it can be done, and it can be done well. And so I'll just share with you my feelings about homeschooling right now as I'm excited, and my excitement is being renewed. So I'd say renewal would be my word. I'll just start with my story. So I was involved in a mom's group when my daughter was, she was 4, and my oldest daughter was 4. So I have 3 children right now. I have a 20-year-old who's in college. I have a 17, soon to be 18-year-old who just graduated from high school. And then I have a 13-year-old who's heading into 8th grade. So that's where I am right now. So, but when my oldest daughter, who's now 20, was 4 years old, I had people asking me, well, what preschool is she going to go to? And I was like, preschool? I don't know. I haven't thought about preschool. Before I had kids, I was a high school English teacher. And I became a mom, and I put that aside. I was like, I'm never going to teach. I don't want to teach anymore. I don't want to teach public school, whatever. I just want to be a mom. And so then when the preschool thing came up and I had to think about school, I was nervous, and I was like, what am I going to do? And so I started talking to my friends. I lived in Venice Beach at the time, on the west side of LA. And so a lot of my friends were like, well, I signed Joey up when he was, 6 months old to go to the best preschool. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Am I going to get left behind because I haven't signed my kid up for the best preschool? I started panicking and freaking out. And so I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she just said to me, Heidi, why do you have to do preschool? And I was like, well, because it's the thing to do. It's just what you do. And so I was just like, well, okay. She said, have you thought about homeschooling? And I said, well, no, not really, because all the homeschoolers I knew, their kids were really weird. And I'll be honest, I didn't want my kids to be weird. And it just didn't seem like the right thing to do. And so I was just like, I don't think I want to do this homeschooling thing. And she's like, look, there's a homeschooling 101 class, much like you guys are doing right now, but it was in person. There's a homeschooling 101 class at this homeschool conference, and you can go, and it's free. And all you have to do is just listen. My friend had decided to homeschool because her son was in a preschool kindergarten situation, and every day she went to pick him up, and every day the teacher was like, he did something bad. Like every day he's doing something bad, and it wasn't that it was bad. It was just he was getting up and walking around or wanting to talk to the neighbor next to him or whatever it was. And so she was just discouraged hearing that from the teacher every day. So she said, you know what, I think I'm going to try this homeschooling thing. So she was already doing it, and she was enjoying it. And then she encouraged me to go and listen to this woman. Well, the woman that I heard, and you might want to write this name down because she has a lot of resources even now. Her name is Diane, Dianne Flynn Flynn Keith, Keith. And she actually published a book called Car Schooling. So if you want to homeschool on the go, that's what you got to do. If you like field trips and you like traveling and you want to school anyway, that's the book for you. But anyway, so I went and listened to this woman speak, and as she was sharing her story, I just sat there with my mouth open of just like, oh my gosh, I want this for my kids. She shared her story about how she had her kids at home, and this is back when, you know, you were like in the basement with a tiny little light over, you know, you and your kids, and you're locked in your house during school hours. And, you know, you could only come out after 3 because that's when the rest of the kids are out, because homeschooling wasn't really like acceptable. And she was up in the Bay Area, like Marin County, San Francisco, you know, up there. And so she said, you know, I just wanted my kids to grow into the people that they wanted to be. And so basically she said, if they were interested in rocks, we would study rocks, and we would study everything about rocks. And we would go to the local rock shop, and we would talk to the guy at the rock shop, and we would ask every question, and they would totally exhaust this man, but he was very excited because he was passionate about rocks. So my kids were excited about rocks. And then we would go and visit all these different geological sites, and we would, you know, get their hands dirty with the rocks and like touching them and feeling them and studying them and getting books from the library. And, you know, again, this is before online, so this is all like library. And then, you know, and then all this, and then it like led from rocks into like sculpture, because you sculpt things out of rocks, and then it leads to art. And then it was sort of like she shared this path of studying one thing, and it just leads to all these other things, and it just goes and goes and goes. And she said, when I heard her speak at the time, her sons were then 15 and 17. The 17-year-old he was like a month away or so from getting his helicopter license. He had been learning how to fly a helicopter. He had also apprenticed under a plumber, and basically was getting ready to start his own business. And he would, because of the kind of the apprenticing, and he had started getting paid, he saved the money, and he was getting ready also to buy his own car for the first time. And this is at 17 years old. I'm like, when I was 17 years old, I had no responsibility. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. You know, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way. You just, I don't know, you know. And so I sat there and I was amazed. And then she started, you know, with the airplane thing, there's the Young Eagles program, and you could put your kid in that, and they learn how to fly, and, you know, all this stuff. And I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I want this for my kids. If I hadn't had this sort of opportunity, I probably would not have become a teacher, like a traditional teacher. I was into photography at the time, and I was, you know, I was nearing 30. And so, you know, I was interested in photography, and that's maybe what I would want to have done. But I didn't know that, you know, 13 years prior. I kind of wish I had known that 13 years prior, you know. So anyway, so I was just like, man, I want this for my kids. And so I went home and I talked to my husband about it. I talked it over with my friend, and I was just like, I can't believe that same conference. I went to another one because they gave you the 101 class for free, and then you went to this other one. And this other one was this man and this woman, husband and wife, and I think they had like 7 children or something. But they decided to bike across Europe. They were Americans, but they decided to ride their bicycles with the entire family. Okay, they had like a 2-year-old in the little seat in the back behind, and they did Europe, and they learned everything. They learned European history and art and architecture and all this crazy stuff. And I just was like, what? I want this for my kids. I want this life. What is this life? You know, it's like, this is incredible. And And this is, again, back before online stuff, right? Now we have the ability to be online, have our businesses online. We could work from virtually anywhere. And these people were doing that even before. And so I couldn't believe it. It was like the most life-changing day of my schooling career. I felt schooled that day. So I went home and I talked to my husband, and I just was like, listen to all this. And I just shared everything. And he looked at me and he said, I think we should try it. And I was like, what? I wasn't expecting him to say yes. And he said yes because of all that I had shared. And later, and I had already known this, but later he said, when I was in school, I hated school. I didn't like traditional school. I didn't fit into the mold. Like, I wanted to draw and do art and doodle, and I constantly was getting in trouble, and I wanted to socialize, and I was getting in trouble. And so I think we should allow our kids to become who they want to be and who they're meant to be, and homeschool them. And my mind was blown. I was like, okay, so, then the journey began, and we started. And I didn't really have resources, but I had friends. And I know we're in a different state of things now. But maybe you have those few friends that are also in the same boat as you, and you can get together, and maybe you're really good at math, and your friend's really good at literature, and another friend's really good at science, and you take turns and you share, and you like teach each other's kids, and you mentor them and help them, and create that, I guess, that tribe or that village for yourself, for your kids. Because that's what I did. That's how I got started. And those moms and those friends that I started homeschooling with early on are now my best friends, and our kids are still close. And so, but you just create and build that community. You find people around you that are good at things that you're not, and you just create that I don't know, that tribe or that village of people. And later on, when I moved out of there, I ended up moving into the San Gabriel Valley, and I had friends that were good at raising chickens. Okay, so my kids went over their house and learned how to raise chickens. So, there's so many things that, your friends will know that you don't, and vice versa, that you can just share with that community. So part of Diane Flynn Keith's conversation that day was also that, Tina, it's okay, go ahead. I think it's being recorded. Maybe you can listen later. But one of the things that Diane Flynn Keith shared is, as she said, you might be worried now about how you're going to teach your kids, right? And what you're going to teach them, and how am I going to hit all the subject matters? And she handed everybody a package of these. She handed everybody a small package of M&Ms. This is the large size. Okay, this is what we like in my family, is the large size. But it was the small, more individual pack, the smaller one that's like this, but it looks the same. So for my purposes today, we'll use the large one. But she said, you can teach every subject from an M&Ms package. And I said, excuse me? I don't think so. I don't think so. It's a package. How can you teach everything from an M&Ms package? And so she proceeded to basically school me again and tell me that, yes, you can teach everything from an M&Ms package. So I was like, okay, all right. So I listened, and she basically said, so all the M&Ms are inside. This is empty, but all the M&Ms inside, you can pour them all out, and you can separate them into the different colors, and you can count them all with little ones. Count them. Counting how many red, how many blue, how many yellow. They get a little bit older, then you start getting into percentages. What percent of the M&Ms are yellow and red and brown and blue or whatever? I wrote a whole thing. You can add your blue ones and your red ones. How many do you have total? You can subtract by eating them. If I have 12 and I eat 2, how many do I have left? I have 10, that sort of thing. You can estimate for older ones, you can estimate how many yellow, sort of like a guessing game, how many yellow, how many blue, that sort of thing. What percent do you think that would be of, again, just, of the package? How many how many how many ounces does do the blue ones weigh? And this is a 10-ounce package, and like the guessing, but actually doing and figuring all this out. So there's the math part, and I was like, well, that's easy. All right, that's easy math, right? Adding, subtracting that, and then you go to the back, right? And then you have all the calorie, and it's got the percentages of different things, right? But then she said, well, that's health. And I was like, wait, what? Okay, let's talk about health. So then, she goes all through all this. And then this is actually a new addition to the package that wasn't there when I was doing it, but it says right here, partially produced with genetic engineering. Well, for older kids, what's genetic engineering? Let's research this. Interesting. I've not heard this before. Well, let's see what other things in our pantry have this, and what does that mean? So there's science, okay? Then right here, we have, right here, down here, it says, I don't know if you can see it. It says, questions or comments with a phone number. Oh, interpersonal skills. Let's have them call. All right, let's have them call and ask a question of the M&Ms people and see if they can answer it. So you have the, not only the interpersonal skills, they're talking to an adult that's not you or your spouse or your partner, but let's talk to somebody in real life and ask a question about our M&Ms. Then there's right here, down at the bottom of this logo, there's a website. And it's mymms.com. And so the website obviously has changed. It used to have on it the history of chocolate. So you could go and you could research the history of chocolate. Well, that's not on the website anymore. So, but I did write a couple of things down that are on the website. Recipes are on the website. That's cooking. That's practical, real life stuff. When you're making a recipe, that's math. It's fractions of like quarter cup, half cup, tablespoon, half tablespoon, whatever it is that they're requesting. So that there's that. And then then there was also, if you wanted to jump off and so it is chocolate, well, let's look up the history of chocolate. So then that leads you to the Aztecs and the Mayas and how they discovered chocolate and how they used it, which you may or may not know. I'll tell you this little factoid, that it was originally intended to drink, not to eat. And it wasn't sweetened. It was the bitter chocolate the way that it was, but they used it as a drink. Well, then the Spanish explorers came and they interacted with the Aztecs and the Mayas, and they took it back to Europe. So that's how it went from South America and Central America over to Europe. And so then the Europeans didn't really care for it. So that's how it added the sugar and made it sweet. And then that takes you into, well, who started the first chocolate company? Well, it was actually not Hershey or Nestle, or Mars. It was actually Cadbury. Cadbury was the first chocolate company. And so then you could research about the Cadbury family and who they are and how they came, you guys, there's so much information. And with the internet now, incredible. You can find out anything and you can do it for free. You don't have to pay for anything. You can absolutely do it for free. And when your kids are small, you might not want to spend money on classes, and that's okay. There's so much, and you can get books on it. You can go to the library. I know our library is still closed, but we can actually, they have it where we can check it out. So we can we can request it, and then they put it in a little bag for us, and then we can go and do curbside pickup of our library for books or whatever. So, I mean, there's all that. Then if you notice, what kind is it? It's peanut. Okay. Well, let's talk about who found the peanut. That would be George Washington Carver. So then you have a whole like biography section and like invention and innovation and exploration and all that. Like there's so many things that you can find out about history. And do you see what I'm saying? Like this is an M&M's package. And we just did all that. Okay, so then just a couple more things. So then we have this and this word up here, sharing. Oh, sharing for little ones, that's a character builder, right? Well, what does it mean to share? And how can we share our M&Ms with our brother, with our sister, with our mom, with our dad, with our neighbor? Like, how can we share, right? And then also, if you want to talk about character, you can go to the M&M's online site and you can see all these guys right here. And they all have different personalities, these little M&M's dudes, and they have all different characters, right? All different personalities that could lead into a whole like psychology lesson for older ones about like character and character traits and attitude and behavior and all sorts of things. Also on the website, if you have high schoolers and even middle schoolers, if you're talking about some of these issues, they have a whole section on the M&M's website about modern day slavery and their stance on modern day slavery. Wow, like that's it. It's a real life issue. It's a company that's kind of addressing these things. Let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation about modern day slavery. What does that look like? You know, as you have older kids, some of you have those that are in middle school and going into high school, like, what does that mean? Let's talk about that. And then also with maybe psychology would be the color. Why do we choose the color? I found a whole lesson plan for high school psychology about the colors that you choose when you eat M&Ms. They say certain things about you, and it's like this whole study. And if you have high schoolers and you're interested in that, message me and I'll put your email or whatever, and I'll email that information to you. But do you see how much there is in this little tiny package? There's so much information, so much homeschooling. Learning is all around you. Everywhere you look, everything you do, everything you touch, there's something to be learned from it. The other thing I wanted to say was something that I noticed is that, you know, when I was homeschooling my kids, whatever I was doing, my kids followed my lead. So for example, if I'm on my computer, my kids are watching TV because this was before phones, right? I still notice now when I'm on my phone, my kids go on their phones. But I also notice when I'm cleaning out a bookshelf and I sit on the floor and I find a great book that I'm reading and I flip it open and start reading it, guess what? My kids are suddenly sitting on the floor around me looking at books too and reading those books. So that's another thing that you might want to consider is whatever you're doing, your kids will follow your lead. So for example, somebody mentioned that their husbands, they're working from home or their husband's working from home. And, you're on the computer and you're working and maybe your children are needing to be online to take a class. So if you're working sort of together, they're taking your lead. If you're online doing your work, that they would also be online doing theirs. Parents, I don't think we realize what an incredible influence we have, how much our behavior affects our kids, but especially in homeschooling. Just it's an incredible opportunity for you to have good influence over your kids right now, especially in the way the world is. It's an exciting time. And so, like how I was talking earlier about having this life of, being able to go places. I made a commitment to my kids that we would take a road trip every summer. So for several summers in a row, it was the same road trip, but we would go see friends up the coast. But I made a point of like stopping at all of these. I would find interesting places that we hadn't seen before, and I would go and stop and see it.
Just one moment, Christy. Thank you for joining us. I think you might need to go on mute. We're hearing a little bit of background noise there.
Hi, welcome, Christy. Two Christys and a Michelle.
Thank you.
Anyway, I shared earlier that my daughter and I went on a road trip this summer. We actually took Highway 40 from where I live in Los Angeles all the way to Memphis, Tennessee. And then we went up to Nashville and then back down to Atlanta to visit her grandpa. But along the way, I researched Route 66, and I tried to find like interesting spots along the way that, hold that history for us, with the Mother Road and all that. And I ended up finding the Transcontinental Divide. And the Transcontinental Divide is awesome, and it's a great thing to study. And if you I don't know if you know about it or you've ever visited. I've actually now been able to visit it in two places, one in Colorado and then one in, I believe it's New Mexico is where the other section is. But when the rain falls there, it either goes to the Pacific Ocean or to the Atlantic Ocean. So it splits at that point. And so we were able to find that. And, and she graduated from high school, and, she's still learning about this stuff. So learning never stops. It continues to go. But yeah, so as far, like I said earlier, I taught high school English, and just because I was a teacher doesn't mean that I had an advantage. Yes. When my kids were small, I didn't teach little kids. I taught older kids. So it took me learning how to, take the time to sit down on the floor with them and have them direct their play. And then as they got older, it was still me, sitting with them, but allowing them to tell me what they were interested in and what they wanted to study and the things that they wanted to do. And how can I, as their mom, help them to succeed in finding out the information they want to know. How can I be their advocate for education? How can I help them achieve, what they believe is their mission in life, what they believe is, or what currently is their passion? Like, how can I feed that? How can I help them? And I think as parents, that's what we ultimately want, is we want our kids to be happy and successful.
I'm sorry. Christy,
yeah.
You came off mute. Sorry. If you could go back on mute, Christy Cole, that'd be great. Thanks, Christy.
I think she's still on.
Oh, sorry, Heidi.
That's okay.
Heidi, if you want to make me the host, I will go ahead and mute people. I don't think they realize they're unmuted when they come in.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I don't have to be the host. It's okay.
Thanks, Christy.
So, anyway, I just, again, as my kids got older, I did say in my description that I did take a look back, and I was like, man, maybe I should put my kids in school. Because when my middle daughter, so my oldest daughter follows more with me, and she's very like school minded. So she would be happy doing a workbook, or she would be happy doing, any sort of book work and reading. Voracious reader, she, literally even now she can go through a novel in like 2 days. Like, she just crazy, My second daughter, my middle child, hates reading. Actually has a little bit of dyslexia, we discovered, although I never did label her. I didn't want her to have any sort of labels on her, so I never got her tested or anything, but I could tell that she was dyslexic. But hated reading, liked to socialize, was crazy social, like crazy social, off the chart, like to the point of, you know, when the water guy would come to deliver water to our house, she'd sit on the front porch and she'd say, can I have a bottle of water? And he'd be like, well, you know, I can't really give those out, but let me see what I can do. And so went back to his truck and came back with a case for her, just because she was sweet and kind and decided to strike up conversation with this gentleman. But literally talked to everybody, like the lady at Target. Oh, I really like your shirt. Where'd you get it? You know, and your earrings are so pretty, and oh, you have pretty eyes, you know, or, you know, just whatever, striking up conversation with everybody. And she's actually the one that my husband later said, I don't want her to be put into school because she's going to get in trouble because she's just like me. He saw himself in her and said, she's going to get in trouble. And my husband actually did get in trouble. Eventually he went to continuation school. That's how far trouble he got. He got kicked out. He didn't actually end up graduating high school until right before we got married, which he was 27 at the time. So, he just was like, especially about her, you know, I don't really want her to go to school. I want her to be who she's going to be. And, so when she was 5, she said, Mommy and Daddy, I need to sit you down and I need to talk to you. Okay. So she sat us down and talked to us, and she said, I want to go to school. And I said, well, why do you want to go to school? And she said, because I want friends, and you're not giving me friends. You know, my sister is not enough of a friend. I need more. So I said, well, okay, well, we can think about that. Come back to us in 6 months, and then we'll have another conversation about school. Well, she never did come back to talk to us about school, but I made sure from that point on that she would have friends. So I actually went so far as to start a play group. I started a play group for her so that she would have friends and she would have social outlets at least 2 to 3 times a week. And if we weren't at a park somewhere, she at least had a friend over or something, you know. And I know right now it's kind of hard with, you know, if people are quarantining or not wanting to be together, you know, because of coronavirus or whatever. But if you have, like, you know, 1 or 2 kids that their parents are like cool with hanging out, even if it's outside, you know, create a teacher's lounge, and teacher's lounge being the parents hanging out and the kids being able to play and have that support for the parents, and the kids have the social outlet. You know, however that works for you, however that would look. I actually literally do have friends that they have a group of women that they get together. There's 3 or 4 of them, and they literally call themselves the Teacher's Lounge. And the kids say, hey, we have a Teacher's Lounge this week. And so they go on Friday and they find some place to hike, some, you know, in the mountains of LA here, or they go down to the beach or something, but there's some physical activity, hiking or whatever, playing in the water. But the parents be sure that they connect, and they be sure that they provide that social